Everybody's given up on the slippery slope fallacy as an argument, and now everybody just screams at each other for the most part. I remember, it didn't feel like it was that long ago, but I remember when people would always bring up the slippery slope fallacy, as kind of a go-to deflection, like when someone was criticizing some kind of political change they wanted, that this other person wanted. Like one person would suggest something, say this is the right thing to do politically, socially. And then a critic, would say, well, that's not a good idea because then, this can happen and this can happen. It'll extend further. These are the possible outcomes, which, is very reasonable. I mean, people should bring these things up and should consider these things. That's an essential part of being a thinking, functional adult is considering the possible outcomes of a decision and, unintended consequences of a course of action. Because what we intend to happen when we do something, when we set out to do something, is often not the result of that choice. The cliche of the road to hell is paved with good intentions. That's that's sadly often true. I mean, people, they try to do something good, something that's good from their own perspective, and then it doesn't work out the way they thought it would. Maybe because they didn't consider, what's really going to happen in the real world when I implement this change. Oh, people need to be able to criticize changes and potential courses of action by bringing up possible unintended outcomes. That's very important. But then what I've observed is that people, the one originally proposing the change, that person will say, oh, you're just, in response to the criticisms and the warnings of what could happen as an unintended result of that change, this person will bring up the slippery slope. They'll say, oh, that's just a logical fallacy. You're just you're just assuming that things will get worse, and it's not necessarily the case. And people are often, or at least used to be, too quick to jump to that. I think they assume that all cases of warning of things sliding down the slope, so to speak, they assume that was always a fallacy, and that's not the way logical fallacies work. A lot of people misunderstand those, I think, and I think they're kind of a terrible way to argue. Personally, I think it's kind of a childish way to argue. Is saying that someone's invoking logical fallacies. It's kind of a because it's like, well, it's always almost always a misrepresentation of what people. It's better to just engage with what people are actually saying and not try to frame it as something fallacious. But so people would try to deflect. They would say, oh, well, that's just a slippery slope. There's no there's no, you can't know that things will happen that way, which is which in and of itself is fair. But people only ever did this / used to do this when having political, social debates. They only used to do this when it served their purposes. People on all sides of different topics and different controversial kind of divisions in society, they would they would say, oh, that's just you're jumping to conclusions. You're saying this is gonna get out of hand and this is gonna be worse. This is going to affect more people than originally intended, affect things in ways that are not originally intended. They would use that to uh, to deflect legitimate, often, not always, but often legitimate criticism. But only when it was something that they were in favor of. And then when it was something that they opposed, they would do that exact same thing. And that's my point, is that people only invoke the slippery slope fallacy when when it's something that they are in favor of, and then when it's something they're opposed to, they will do the opposite. And as I said at the beginning of the video, I think people, at this point, it seems like people have largely kind of given up on that kind of thing, which I don't know whether that's a good thing or not. It's probably a bad thing, honestly, because at this point, it seems like people are just screaming at each other and just going straight on the offense all the time about everything, and not trying to play nice about anything anymore. And I think that's you can only have profound divisions and profound cultural divisions for so long before that is the inevitable outcome, sadly. So I just think, I think the healthier thing, personally, I think the healthier thing, and this is, what I try to do is, what I've always tried to do is not just try to negate the criticisms of, like, if okay, so like say I'm suggesting something and I'm saying we should do this, we should do that, and then someone says, well, okay, but what, this, like, that's a bad idea because then it will have these, I think it will have these unintended consequences, and I think it will spiral out of control in the following ways. And I think you're not considering saying this to me. I think you're not considering the full impact or full potential impact of this change that you're advocating for. I think that's very legitimate, and I think people should do that, and I think they should offer criticism of that kind. And I try to, I try to be open to criticism like that, because I think we have to discuss these things. We have to be willing to say, okay, this is what we want to do. This is what we're setting out to do. If we follow this plan and try to get it done this way, is that going to, is that going to have the effect that we want, or could it misfire in the following ways? Could it blow up in our faces and cause all these additional problems? Like, you just have to, with any kind of plan, you have to think about that. You have to really be willing to consider, assuming you want it to go well. There's the thing, assuming you care about the outcome and the goal. It's like, do you care more about the goal that you're ostensibly trying to achieve, or do you care more about just, like, getting the plan done? Because I think an intelligent person wants the end goal achieved. Like, that's the important thing. That the means is just a means to an end, and you care about the end. And so you have to be willing to think about these things and, kind of be honest about it. You have to be honest with yourself about, well, like, I think I have this great plan. What could go wrong? Like, you have to look at it like, okay, I guess it's kind of like if you're trying to argue something, like in a debate club or that kind of thing, and so you're trying to argue, and then you like come up with your argument, and then you take your own argument and you try to like pull it apart, and you try to you go at it like you're trying to dismantle it and find everything that could potentially be wrong with that with that argument. And that's how it is with plans of any kind also. You need to look at it dispassionately, and look at it just kind of as objectively as possible, and say, is this a good plan? Like, try to throw your ego aside and try to, not get too attached to the plan. Think about the end goal rather than just what just what the because people can get really attached to the plan. The plan is good. Oh, I really like this plan. I think I did a good job coming up with this plan, and they can lose sight of the what the plan is supposed to achieve, because that's the whole point. The plan is just a means to an end. The end is what matters. Yeah, and and so people selectively invoke, oh, that's just the slippery slope fallacy. They just selectively invoke these things, and they might not call it that, but um, but then they'll also disregard legitimate concerns along those same lines. They will say, oh, well, it's going to move, this may work now, but then in the future it'll move on to these other things and these other, it'll have these unintended consequences. But they won't, they're not being honest about, like, is that realistic? They're just assuming the worst. People either assume the worst or they assume the best, depending on whether it's something that they want to move forward with.